Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Lucas Berchel. I'm CEO of Dronetag, and today we will be discussing remote ID topic. The main purpose for this webinar is to really get you inside the remote ID, show you that you don't have to be afraid of it, and also that we already seeing some adoption from the largest drone manufacturers. So for example, Yuneec, which is organizing this webinar with our company, is actually now working on implementing remote ID into their drones. And I'm really happy that I can welcome here also Nils Lau, who is account manager for Yuneec, to also welcome you. So Nils, please, I give now floor to you to give our attendees a few words, and after you do that, we will jump into the presentation, and we have many things to discuss. So let's go for it, Nils. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Nils Lau, and I am the account manager at Yuneec Europe GmbH. Let me shortly introduce Yuneec to you. Yuneec is the largest manufacturer of hexacopter and has been producing and selling them globally since 2014. Since 2020, Yuneec has specialized in professional hexacopter systems. These are used, for example, by authorities with security tasks. In order to meet the requirements of our users, we are constantly developing our products. This also includes secure integration into the use space. The Dronetag team has developed a smart and professional solution that enables our copters to fly safely in future-controlled airspace. We are therefore very happy to be able to offer our users this solution now. I wish all participants a lot of fun and gladly hand over the floor to Team Dronetag.
Thank you, Nils. I'm really happy to have you on board with this mission. Bringing safety to the low-level airspace was one of our main goals just 4 years ago. So it's pleasant to be working with you. And now we will be discussing introduction of our company. We will be discussing what's remote ID, why should you care, what can value it can bring you, what technologies are used for the remote ID, how to get compliant with it, and lastly, if everything goes well from the technical point of view, we will do a short live demonstration. So to get you some idea why we are even discussing the remote ID and what's the context of it. So we have heard about some drone accidents. We have heard about some advanced operations. People want to fly BVLOS. People want to fly in a fleets. We are hearing about urban air mobility and bringing air taxis into the cities. But what's really important there that the first building block to achieve such a visionary missions is having a remote ID on board. So what particularly is a remote ID? It's a digital transmission of telemetry data that you have on the drone and also some kind of identification and transferring it to other drones and also people on the ground. So that's the basic idea. If you're trying to see some similarities, then you can imagine the classic flight radar of airplanes that you are basically able to see their position on the map. And we are trying to achieve the same for the drones, including seeing some of their registration. The registration is, let's say, some number with alphabetical characters. It's not something that you have your name there, so you can, again, have it similar to your car's license plate. And what is it good for? So now most of the drones have been flying anonymously. So the remote ID basically makes you accountable for any kind of rule violation, and it really tries to put some rules in the airspace. So if there are, let's say, police nearby you and they can see you are violating the rules, that you are, for example, flying over a stadium, over concert without having the right approval, they can enforce you to stop doing that. For the ordinary people, it tries to protect their let's say their privacy, having the option to see what the drones are flying, for example, at above their property. And lastly, the most important part, and that's the motivation why we get into this remote ID stuff, is that it allows you to unlock the new possibilities of drones, bringing some, let's say, business potential to them. Now, we cannot imagine air traffic, basically the cargo airplanes or passenger airplanes, working without ADS-B system. The same will in the future apply for the drone industry. And before we get into the, let's say, more deep topic of the remote ID, we need to distinguish between two of types of remote ID. The first one is something which we call direct remote ID, shortly DRI. And this is just the broadcasting from the drone without need of any kind of infrastructure. So you just have your drone and you are broadcasting the surrounding. You usually do that over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. You cannot use ADS-B, as this was for most of the scenarios forbidden by the EASA and FAA. On the other hand, we have network remote ID, shortly NRI, which really works over a cellular network, and both of those have some cons and pros. So the technologies that you can use for the broadcasting are actually four, which are now standardized. We have something called Bluetooth 4, Bluetooth 5, Wi-Fi Beacon, and Wi-Fi NAN. If you are getting compliant with a remote ID, you just have to use only one of the three technologies. So you can use either Bluetooth 5, Wi-Fi Beacon, or Wi-Fi NAN. You don't have to go with all of them. The Bluetooth 4 is there just for the compatibility purposes, because you can see it's supported on all smartphones. It's supported on Android and iOS. On the other hand, we can see that no other technologies are currently being supported on the iOS, and that's due to the lack of API support on the Apple side. This is something that's being discussed, and that will probably change in the future, but now it is what it is. The main differences between the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi is the transmission power. That's the main reason why with the Wi-Fi remote ID you can get much further away, because you have at least 10 times more power. But on the other hand, the Wi-Fi beacon is something that has some little trouble, and that's a refresh rate at the common smartphones. So consider you are using your Android smartphone that supports Wi-Fi beacon, and the problem with Wi-Fi beacon is that most of the smartphones are having some power saving features. Therefore, you will be receiving the data very occasionally. So you will be getting the data, let's say, once per 20 seconds. So you are not really getting the real-time effect. On the other hand, the Bluetooth part, and even it's 4 or 5, you are getting the data simultaneously. There are no silent windows, let's say. So this is really something for the real-time feeling. You are getting the data each few milliseconds. Lastly, there is a Wi-Fi NAN technology, which, despite the fact that it's into the standard, we haven't seen much implementation of this technology. And the main reason for that, it's supported on just very few smartphones on the market. So very limited sort of smartphones support Wi-Fi NAN. Only Android support Wi-Fi Beacon, and all smartphones supports Bluetooth 4. So that should be the takeaway of this. And in terms of the standards, we can see that even Europe and US has already made one. And we can also distinguish between multiple types of remote ID. So you can either have a built-in remote ID that you already bought some, let's say, C-class drone in the Europe. So we have recently seen some C-class drones appearing on the market. Then you have a built-in remote ID. On the other hand, you can have an external one. So for example, you are having an old drone and you want to somehow retrofit to the new rules, then you will be having external remote ID via some external devices, add-on modules. And the quick advantage of the built-in remote ID is something that you don't really have to care about it. So this is something you have from the manufacturer, you have it there, it comes at no cost, and you don't really have to worry about it. The disadvantage of such a solution is that you can be pretty much limited of what you are able to do with such a system. So for example, if you are police, first responder, etc., and you are exempt of the remote ID, then you are, for example, unable to turn off that feature. And another disadvantage is that some of newer drones will still don't have the network remote ID feature, so they are just drones with a built-in direct remote ID, the broadcasting part, but we haven't seen much of them coming with network part. And for the add-on solution, this really gives you the flexibility of choosing the solution. So there is open market, anyone can join in, and you can really use the one that you like. It's also good that you don't have to buy a new drone with remote ID, that you can just retrofit the one you already bought, so you are saving some costs. It can be any kind of hybrid solution. It can be just DRI, or it can be a DRI plus NRI. That's up to you to decide. And of course, there are some disadvantages. So it comes at some cost. It's always cheaper than buying a new drone, but there is additional cost for the hardware. There can be some cost for the subscription. So for example, if you would be running network remote ID, then you will be paying for the tariff. And it's not really, let's say, suitable for drones below 250 grams, because then you are adding much more weight than it should be there. And when is the remote ID required? So we can see two major timelines globally. So just to let you know something interesting, even though we are still waiting for the mandate in Europe and the US, there is one country that already have remote ID in place, and it's Japan. So in Japan, you now have all drones above 100 grams flying with remote ID. So they were actually first with mandating this rule. In terms of the next country which will get there, it will be probably the US, because from this year, December 16, all drone manufacturers that want to operate on the US market must put the remote ID systems inside. And when I'm speaking about the remote ID inside, I mean really the one just broadcasting solution over Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So the mandate for the US is really about just broadcasting. So there is even possibility that some of the drones that are now on the market will receive some kind of firmware update to become compliant with those new rules from the December. On the other hand, all operators in the US which won't be flying in something called FAA recognized area have time to retrofit until September 16, 2023. So until this date, they can fly without remote ID, but after this date, they must have, let's say, a remote ID capable drone, or they must go with retrofitting their drones with some remote ID add-on module. For the European part, we see there is a mandate. Again, it's for broadcast remote ID, and it's the 31 December 2023 to have a remote ID for something called C-class drones. And we are really seeing C1, C3 drones already being on the market with remote ID. And of course, there will be some exemptions. So for example, the drones below 250 grams or toys, they don't really have to care about the remote ID rule because they are mostly considered as a toys. And for the professional pilots that have already bought their drones for their work, and they are flying in something called specific category, that's the type of operation you are conducting near the airports, in the cities, etc. Those pilots will have to use remote ID after 1st of January 2024. To that date, there is only one possibilities in the European airspace, and that's something called USpace airspace. And this USpace airspace is something which has a requirement for network remote ID. So once there is a USpace airspace in the European Union, then you have to use network remote ID, not the broadcast remote ID one. So now I would like to introduce you our products. So we will be discussing two of them. The first one is called Dronetag Mini. That's the bigger one. And then we will be discussing Dronetag Beacon. That's the smaller one. So in terms of the device capability, so they look like this to give you some real size overview. And the Dronetag Mini is our flagship device. So it has both direct plus network remote ID to be actually future-proof. Anyone would be able to use it. And it's really about having something that's, let's say, state-of-the-art in terms of the features. It has 32 grams, so it's let's say pretty lightweight for professional pilots, and it can be mounted via this snap fit mechanism. So there's a snap fit mechanism which is really sturdy, so you just snap it onto your drone and it will you can be sure that it won't fall off. It meets the latest US and European standards. So any kind of rule that will come out, you can be sure that you get compliant. And the device itself is completely independent. So it has its own battery for 8 hours of flying. It has its own GNSS receiver. It has its own pressure sensor for sending the pressure altitude, and it has also accelerometer for detecting the flight start and ending. So it can be also connected to your Pig's Hawk capable drones. So there's a small connector which we call extension port, and via this extension port you can read the data directly from the flight controller and stream those via network remote ID and also via Bluetooth, broadcast via Bluetooth. And in terms of the range, so we have tested our products in the field, and we have achieved around 3 kilometers range of Bluetooth broadcasting. And when I speak about Bluetooth broadcasting, I really mean from the drone to the smartphone. So if you would be using any kind of dedicated receiver, you can get much better range, but that was not the goal. So around 3 kilometers is achievable for the direct remote ID. And if you would like to go even more, then we allow you to add external antennas. So we have an external antenna for LTE, and we have external antennas for Bluetooth. These are optional accessories which you can use anytime you need a better signal reception. And the smaller version of the Mini, which is something we call bare minimum to fulfill the regulations, is Dronetag Beacon. It's around 16 grams. It has broadcast remote ID over Bluetooth only, and it's also much cheaper. It comes with the same features, same integration possibilities, same snap-fit attachment. Everything is basically the same. The only missing is the network remote ID functionality. And the good part about our solution is that we can easily extend this to other fields. So we have recently launched our OEM solutions. So we have an OEM solution for network plus direct remote ID, which is a similar functionalities as a Mini. So again, to give you some overview of the real size, so this is network plus direct remote ID, and it's really meant to be integrated inside the drone. So there are no sensors, there's no battery. This is really something that you plug inside and become compliant. We also have a smaller version as we have with the Beacon, and this is called Dronetag DRI, and you just plug it to your connectors via Mavlink, and it again fetches the data from the flight controller, broadcasts them, and it also doesn't have any kind of battery, so everything is taken from the flight controller. The point of this system is that you also need to connect your own external antennas, because you cannot have internal antennas inside because you have a carbon fiber, etc. And where it all gets together is our web and mobile application. So we have a Dronetag web app and mobile app, and it's accompanying all our hardware products. It allows you to configure the devices, plan the zones, have the flight logs, and in the future it will also allow you to have access to some use space airspaces. So this is the plan. Once there is a use space established, we will be really keen on implementing those. And now I will be showing a little demo of the product. So hopefully everything will go fine here. So I have a Dronetag Mini, I have a Dronetag app, and I will be showing what's available in the app. So I'm now turning the application on. I can see the airspace zones, so I can be aware of where I'm flying. I can see some drones nearby. So this is some kind of mocked flight that we are running at our facilities. And when I turn this device on, so I can just press the button for 2 seconds. It will boot up, and in the meantime I can inspect what's happening in the app. So I have some previous flights here which are now being loaded. So for example, I can open this one. I can do a little replay, so I can see what was happening in the flight. I can do export to the authorities, so I might be downloaded in a CSV format. I can manage my devices here, so I can open up my device, see its signal, see its state. So now I can see I'm at around 50% of the battery. I'm running it into a mocking system, so we can see that even when we have 0 satellites, the device is in flight state. I can open up its configuration and see basically what's there. So I can disable the network remote ID functionality, disable the direct remote ID functionality, have the data more often, so increase the frequency of the transmission. And as I mentioned, I'm running simulated GNSS data. So if I would be running the real ones, you can see that the LED on the device will go into the orange, and it basically means that I currently don't have a GNSS signal. The reason for that is that I'm indoors and I'm unable to catch it there. So let me again switch to simulated mode, and it will again transfer to fly properly. And once I get back to the dashboard, I can see, let's say, another mocked device flying there. You can open up some detail, see its parameters, see its height, see its altitude from the pressure sensor. We are missing some data regarding speed, accuracies, and that's again because I'm running on mocked data. And as a pilot, I have this kind of special screen which also allows me to receive push notifications when something would be wrong with my flight. So I can configure those. There's a configuration for the push notifications. So whenever the device gets low on battery, or whenever I'm flying in someone else's zone, I can really get a push notification that there is a possible airspace hazard nearby. Last thing I wanted to mention is that once I'm finishing the flight, I can just press the button. It will get saved on the backend, so I can see I have this flight here. It took 2.5 minutes. Again, I can replay it, and once I switch battery, for example, onto the drone, again I simply press the button, start a new flight, and again see it on the dashboard. So that's pretty much simple. And as I mentioned earlier, the data are standardized. So there is an app called Dronescanner, which we released, and this app Dronescanner really helps you to read the standardized data. So I can see two drones on the list. The one up here has a better signal reception, which you can see on the right side that we are getting some minus 40 dBm. So that's the device I'm currently holding. We can see it's in a grounded state, so that means it's not flying, it's waiting for flight to begin. So again, once I start the flight with the button, we can see it transferred into airborne. We can see that I'm getting messages from the device, and here you can basically you can see what data are accessible to general public that will be using those kind of applications for scanning the broadcast remote ID. So first of all, they can see some details about what technology is used. So we see that the Bluetooth 4 and Bluetooth 5 is used. We can see some MAC address. That doesn't help a lot. But what helps is the last seen field. So we know that the data are up to date. So we can see we are receiving them very often. There is a section for the aircraft, which is the let's say unique serial number of the drone itself, or it can be unique serial number of the device. So here you can see serial number of the device. We can see the state of the drone, so we can see it's airborne, we can see its position, and this is updated real time, so you can see it's changing. There are some fields that are zero right now, and that's because the data are mocked. And lastly, and that's the, let's say, the controversial one, is the operator ID. So that's something that in the European Union you get assigned by the Civil Aviation Authority at your National Aviation Authority. You can upload it to the device and it will then be broadcasted to surroundings. So when you are violating the rules, you can get, let's say, stopped by your Civil Aviation Authority, because they are the ones knowing that behind the registration number your name is in the database. And lastly is the location of the pilot, or in case of the remote ID devices that are standalone, you are seeing the takeoff position. So once I push the button for starting the flight, this first position gets saved as a takeoff, and once it's saved as a takeoff, it's broadcasted from the device. So in terms of the Dronescanner, this app is free. You can get it on app stores for iOS and Android. Please keep in mind that on iOS only Bluetooth is supported, so you won't be able to see the data from Wi-Fi beacon drones coming there, and you will only be able to see Bluetooth drones. The good thing is that Dronescanner is open sourced, so anyone can dive into the code base, see that it's not misusing any kind of data, and the most important part is that they can contribute their knowledge, or they can contribute the features they desire. So any kind of things that you like or don't like in the remote ID, let's say, apps, you can open up this topic in a Dronescanner, and we will be keen to discuss this stuff with you. And this is the last slide of the presentation. Here is just a short information about how to get the products and at what costs they come. So Dronetag Mini is the flagship product. We sell it currently for 299 euros for retailers, and you can get it either on our eshop or via Yuneec as our only distributor in Europe at the moment. The same applies for the beacon, which is 100 euros cheaper, and we will be releasing, let's say, another variants of the product in the future that can come at even more reasonable costs for let's say FPV pilots or let's say aero modelers. So these are really suited for the professional pilots, not for the let's say hobbyists, etc. So that's the reason why the price is there. It comes as a full package. And last thing, the OEM modules that will be launched in this quarter of 2022. They will have individual pricing depending on the scale, depending on the volumes agreement. They are mainly to be used by drone manufacturers or integrators, but we will also release it to the public, to the FPV pilots or aero modelers, so they can integrate it inside. And that's all from my presentation for today. I'm pretty sure that we have collected some questions in the YouTube stream, and please keep in mind that since we are having the technical difficulties now, I won't be addressing them at this moment, but we will go through all of them. We will answer them in a separate sheet. We will do some list and we send it via the email. So please be sure to be attending the webinar via the Google form or via LinkedIn, and we will then send you some follow-up email regarding the questions and any kind of things that come to your mind. Please get back to us, and we will be happy to address them. So that's pretty much it. Let's wrap it up. That was the Dronetag Remote ID solution in a nutshell. We will be planning more webinars in the near future, and those will really get into more deeper into the topic. So one of the topics that we plan to cover is to go into the technical implementation, how it's working inside the hardware, how often you need to send the data, what are the troubles when using Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, how do these solutions compare practically. We will be also covering more topics on the regulation part. So there are some, let's say, exemptions for drones that are too light or that are too specific. For example, they are tethered. And we'll again go more deeper into the part which of them must comply with anything. And lastly, we plan to do some, let's say, integration series to basically show you how easy is to get remote ID compliant, even though when you are a drone manufacturer and you have to now work on something new, we can really guide you through the process, through the paperwork, and show you that you can get compliant within a few steps. So that's all from me. I really thank you for your attention. And as I mentioned, in case you have any questions, feedback, we would be really happy to hear that. And please remember that also you can steer the future of the remote ID. So don't be afraid to talk. We are here to help. We are not the ones who want to introduce some pointless solution. We just try to provide something that you will like and that you enjoy while using. Thank you.